From the unexplained to the mundane, come join us on a journey to the fringe. Hello and welcome to Journey to the Fringe. Maybe now a invasive chemical in the environment. We don't know for sure, and only time will tell. We are your intrusive hosts, Taylor and Chelsea, here today, continuing on with our friend, little Billy, who only got one arm, and he's got a whole lot to tell us, I assume.
Did you just allude that we're the plastic in the environment?
We don't know for sure. Time can only tell.
Shit. Okay, part 2, sentence 1. Welcome to part 2 of the Beam story. You've heard the life of Beam and some other stuff that was related, but in a different part of the episode. We were there, I don't have to say it again. So in this episode, we're going to focus a little bit more on the proof that makes him the only scientifically proven UFO contactee. That's right. Not just Emmanuel. Billy has written an enormous, as I can't emphasize to you enough that it is enormous amount documenting lessons, observances, takeaways. I don't know, he's just writing fucking everything down based on his experiences and contact with the Pteradon and the Confederates that we got an idea of in the last episode.
God, you gotta love the fact that one of these groups goes by the Confederate.
I don't know, like I didn't see anything written about it. I think the Confederates are like the other types of races. Is that the idea you get from it?
In my mind, Confederate means amalgamation.
Yeah, like I don't know, I wrote the episode, but how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, no, a confederation is a political union of sovereign states. So it is just a group of people who, I don't know, are not the Pleiadians, I think is what they're called.
Okay, yeah, fair
but
enough.
But still, that word has connotations.
It does. From which... Oh, this is after. Okay. Anyhow, we touched on the contact files last week. I read you a very minor portion of one. And by minor portion, I mean like 1% of one we went through a little bit of. And since Monday, January 28th, 1975 until Tuesday, January 4th, 2022, there have been, this is a random set of dates, there have been 2,241 purely mission-related and personal contacts, and 1,547 telepathic contacts with the extraterrestrials from the Pleiadian in the Ankar universe, and from their Federation members, as well as with Azket and Nera from the Doll universe of the twin creation, whereby these contacts are still continuing. From the 790 contacts, there are written contact reports compiled so far in 19 blocks of about 500 pages. Partly provided with time, documents, newspaper cuttings, etc. as evidence of fulfilled predictions and events. A very large number of purely private visits, during which only private conversations are held, are not included in the purely mission-related official contact reports. Some of the subject matters discussed are creation and its creations. I'm probably sure that should say creators. That was not my spelling error, I must point out, by the way. Origin of the universe, Earth history, science, astronomy, spirituality, reincarnation, genetic engineering, terrestrial religions, human evolution, spiritual teachings, interplanetary spaceflight, galactic federation, extraterrestrial origin and visitations to Earth, telepathy, overpopulation on Earth, huge one by the way we're going to discuss next week, destruction of the environment, male-female relationships, government military cover-ups, and many more. One thing to know about Billy, if I didn't cover it in the last episode that is that he has all the evidence of this happening. I covered it a little bit as in his little log he had of the great journey. He really laid it out that he had a photo and took a lot of photos of that journey. And man, are they beautiful photos. We're gonna look at them today. You're not. You're gonna see them wherever I so choose to put them, hopefully.
I will describe them to you. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll describe him. It's going to be a real nice description, I'll tell you that much. And I wanted to start off, Taylor. There is a very famous photo of BMs that is as close to pop culture as a UFO photo can get. One that I'm going to describe to you right now, and you're going to be able to picture it in your mind because I guarantee you've seen it. Do you know what it might be if I put it to you that way?
I would assume it's that flying disc that is just sitting there in the 1950s style and the way it does that has been clearly disproven as like on a fishing line.
I love where you're going with that. I can see that you're clearly seeing it in your mind, but I'm going to put it more into view for you now. That being, I said to you, I want to believe. What would you picture in your mind?
Oh, yes. It is very clearly the X-Files poster then.
That is a Billy Meiers photo.
I did not know that.
Neither did I when I was looking into this. Yeah, obviously, whether or not you are a UFO fan or anything like that, even if you're a horror fan, science fiction fan, that's going to tie you into Billy Meiers right now, because I think most of the people who are listening to this episode now are going to be able to clearly picture this in their mind. That's Billy Meiers. So you can see the direction this is going, because that's an actual photo of Billy Meiers, which is why he seems to be such an epic person in the UFO community. I had only listened to him. I don't know why I'm doing this in this episode now, but I always remember him as, obviously he hasn't been I don't think his English, if he speaks any English, is good. Listening to people talking about Billy Meiers on Coast to Coast AM and stuff like that, and he is just regarded as something larger than life, as someone that has the evidence of extraterrestrials.
Yeah, in my mind, really, everything that I know from Billy Meiers is gleaned from him from people who speak English who run into him at Jungfrau Park.
They're almost representing him.
Yeah.
Which would be the fact if they're on Coast to Coast AM talking about him, really. And like I started the first episode with...
Well, can I just add, the beautiful thing about him not representing himself in English is that when his ideas are presented, they don't need to be defended either. Because they're not your ideas, they're Billy's. So you don't have to defend them. So it's actually a beautiful situation to be involved in.
I love that you're saying it that way too, is we're going to have a very different conversation next week as well. So, yeah, as he puts it, he's one of the only people that have the scientific evidence of all of this happening. And evidence he has just absolute shit tons of. And so a big resource I used for this episode is the Future of Mankind website, which is a resource for information produced by Billy Meiers. And they put it all in a nice little list of all the different evidences that BEAM has acquired over all of these years. Not only do they speak for him and put together his information, they also translate it from German. I'm just going to go through kind of the list they put of all the evidence he has, and I have put with it where need be. Let's just stop. I'm going to stop explaining myself. The first is hundreds of thousands of photos taken of beam ships and their landing tracks. For things, photographs of 5 different variations of spacecraft from 3.5 to 7 meter, usually piloted by humans, as well as photographic evidence of his travels through space and time. There are photographs of single or multiple objects, day and night settings, above and below the horizon line. There exists photo and Super 8 footage, film analyzed by electron microscope, laser scanning, and computer functions, thermogram, edge identification, Z-scale contour, density and film grain inspection, processed by electron microscope, microdensitometer, infradometer, Vidicon tube, digitizer, image process computer equipment. We're going to take a closer look at some of the photographs in a second, but it is the assessment of an author that I looked into, and he was looking into some of the photos, and he concluded that 100% of them are fabricated, and therefore, this is going to come to a major shock to you guys at this point, but he deems them hoaxes.
Yeah, and I have to say that we hear a lot of the time on the other end, if one of these is true, that's something that needs to be talked about. I think the other situation here as well is also important. If one of these is faked, that brings into question all of them for this
even
guy.
one of them. And he has such a massive collection of this. And
because the question really becomes, if you had to fake one, why are any of them taken to be true then?
Exactly. If you've been able to get actual evidence, why would you fake even one? So we're just going to keep going. We're going to go on a fun adventure.
Oh, that sounds fun.
I know, it's going to be so fun. I had fun putting this together. The fact that none of the craft photographed exhibit any type of field propulsion distortion adds to this conclusion. Keeping in mind the physical properties of scale, proportion, line of sight, field of view, and focus, it appears that some of the purported Billy Meier photo appear to be small-scale models, approximately 4 inches in diameter, which had been suspended in front of the camera. Later, additional photo trickery was applied to remove any evidence of strings or wires if the alleged encounters with these UFOs did actually take place. Why is it then that none of the residents of the homes in the immediate vicinity photographed them? So I just put that with the evidence that the Billy Meier representation put forth, that some of the evidence is photos. So we're going to go on to the next evidence that Billy Meier has from this agency that put them together. And he has different segments of 8mm motion picture film. The films show variations in flight of ships, multiple craft appearances, instantaneous spatial translations by spacecraft. Portions of the film have been analyzed in frame-by-frame format. I have nothing to say about this. We're going to move on to the next part of evidence he has, which is 4 metal, 1 biological, and 9 mineral and crystal samples. The metal analysis was described thoroughly in videotape format. Beam ship the metal. I don't even know what that fucking means. It showed that the metal was made by a cold fusion process. This technology is not yet known by terrestrial metallurgy. I did find someone that did have something to say about the metal that Billy has, and according to Moose Berger, who looked into this, the analysis was also conducted by a metallurgist from the University of Arizona who, quote, examined one of the metal fragments and analyzed it as a simple cooking pot metal or cheap cast metal alloy used to produce such things as tin soldiers, end quote. That speaks for itself. The next part of evidence that they put forth for Billy Meier is a 20-minute sound recording of a beam ship's whirring sound. And the sound recordings of a non-shielded beam ship was taken in the presence of several witnesses who heard the deafening noise but weren't able to observe the ship that was screened from sight. The loud whirring sound could have been heard for more than 4 kilometers, as was confirmed by persons who soon arrived at the location. The scientific investigation showed that the sound is comprised of many tones and frequencies with unusual anomalies and rapid changes in tone and frequencies. It says listen to it here, and I didn't actually put it in. We should listen to that.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find it. The next piece of evidence is landing tracks. Depending on the type of beam ship, there could have been 1 or 3 landing tracks. When 3, they were 120 degrees apart, circular. Grass was depressed in counterclockwise rotational direction, visible for months after landing occurred. Both existing and new grass were affected. We saw that in Stanley Tiger. He took pictures of landing tracks from UFOs. Mm-hmm. He was good at that. Him. Yeah, I know. Good for him. He was amazing.
He worked so hard. Stanley Tiger was a hard worker, if nothing else.
He was. Actually, he reminds me a lot of Billy Meier. Or the other way around. Maybe he was inspired. last point to their evidence is witnesses. And this is my favorite point of evidence. It actually is the most important part of evidence I found. In addition to Billy, in quotes, Meyer, there are more than 70 people who have witnessed the evidence regarding the Pleiadians/Plegiarans and their beam ships, or Billy himself witnessed it, which is proof enough that this is all happening. So not only did they bless us with that list of all the evidence that he has, they also put up why Beam's photos differ from any other UFO case or photo that you see of UFOs. This is coming straight from his organization's website. I know that hasn't come up yet, but just let that wash over you. And we'll pick that thought back up on the next episode. So here we go. Billy Edward Albert Meyer's photos different from all other known UFO cases by their outstanding picture quality. I'm gotta say, I'm surprised these are in bullet point and they're not numbered. They're large number, hundreds of them, hundreds. Daylight and nighttime photography. Diversity of positions, angles, perspective, techniques, etc. Most images are part of sequences of photographs, which are timely. Images with several UFOs in a single photo. 8mm film footage recorded in parallel to the photos. Additional recordings and photographic documentation, example laser fire traces. All photography and motion video footage was taken before the possibility of computer manipulation was developed. Most captured using standard popular cameras, commercially available Olympus 35 ECR and Malcolm FTL. See camera data. However, there are several other cameras that have been used. Documented and verifiable location, dates, and times. Photos of the film negatives themselves. Decades of all sorts of different investigations by individuals and groups all over the world. Plenty of honest answers given about every possible aspect of it. Are you convinced?
Oh, fully.
Fully. At this point, right?
Yeah.
You read that and you're like, fuck, that gotta be
Makes
some
a lot of
good
sense.
photos.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know anything about photographs, so yeah.
Exactly. It sounds legit. So the next thing we're going to take a look at, it's just from this website that I use. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm just going to get your take of some photographs. I'm going to share my screen and just let some of these photos wash over you and just give me your impressions.
Okay, this is one I have seen before. I'm actually fairly certain I've seen them staging this photo.
Really? So,
yes.
The thing I have to set up about this here, and I'm going to post some of these if I get on social media, we'll see. I will at least post the link of this website up into the episode notes if you want to see the exact photos that we're looking at. You have to think these are coming from a very special time in time and space, which is the time before AI, the time before Photoshop or anything.
Oh yeah, to be able to fake photos, you have to manually be able to do something here.
Yeah, so this one, we're looking at it's beautiful Switzerland landscape is where he's taking these photos. And there's just a saucer just suspended there in midair. And as we've kind of heard so far, it's straight. You can't see any propulsion of any sort. It's not twisting one way or the other. It's just there, as if suspended.
Yeah, none of them seem like they're part of the photo. But also, all of the photos appear to be of landscapes where a UFO is interjected.
Yeah.
And I guess the question really is why is he taking photos of these?
Yeah.
Just because it seems weird to be doing this if...
I don't know that it's came up. So basically, if it hasn't come up, it's going to come up in this episode. Basically, he's had permission from the Pleiadians to take photos of these UFOs for him to pass on because he's a prophet to prove the existence of extraterrestrials.
Okay. But basically, you're going to hear this comment from people who are saying, like, how did you get these photos of UFOs? Because in certain situations, it's just kind of weird for you to be taking photos. So the question is, why did you have your camera ready for this? And he's a guy who lives in Switzerland and is used to these landscapes, yet has just landscape photos with UFOs in them.
That's one of the points against him, which I'm
Yeah.
going to get into. So I'm going to leave you on that frame. We're going to look at more photos, and I'm just going to keep reading and scroll through them as we go. So Beam's photos, or as I prefer BM through this episode, photographs and films allegedly show not only alien spacecraft floating around various places, but also his time in space travel. Right now, Taylor's just looking at the UFO photo that I stopped on, and he apparently had the exclusive rights to be photographing them. The only person in the world with permission, further proof of his prophetism. According to Meyer, the Pteradon gave him permission to photograph and film their beam ships so that he could produce evidence of their extraterrestrial visitations. We saw that on the last episode when he's in the spacecraft with them, and they're saying, take these photos. I'm going to help
in numbered
you
paragraphs.
take photos as well. Yeah, with the camera they stole from some Earthling. We didn't really touch on the photos of the UFOs in the previous episode, but UFOs, there are aplenty, and he calls the UFOs beam ship. I don't have any clue why, but I'm assuming it has to do with translation. Either that or the beam name that he goes by, which I'm assuming could also be that, because we have seen in all these episodes that we did that it takes a certain kind of narcissist that you're sharing something like this with the UFO community. And the beam ships are specific to the Pteradon. It's probably a brand name of the UFO, like a Corolla or something, or a Toyota, Subaru. You got the beam ship. And as you may or may not have put together by now, some of Meyer's photos are claimed by him to show prehistoric Earth scenes. You may have not have put that together by now because I just put it right here. And extraterrestrials and celestial objects from an alleged non-earthly vantage point. Meyer's claims are widely characterized as fraudulent by scientists, skeptics, and most ufologists who say that his photographs and films are hoaxes. I'm going to read you this next photograph and then I'm going to scroll down, Taylor.
Yeah.
In interviews with author Gary Kinder, Meyer admitted to using models to recreate scenes after his wife showed photos of an incomplete model he thought he had destroyed by burning. During a 2017 art exhibit about conspiracies, many of Meyer's photographs were shown. Photography curator Gordon MacDonald commented on examinations from the 1970s that the photos weren't doctored, saying, just because photographs are real, i.e. real images made with a real camera, doesn't mean they are of what a person says they are. So I'm going to immediately, if you see this one, this UFO looks oddly in a tree.
Well,
and we
Chelsea,
scroll down.
not only that, yes, it looks like it has a hole to put a string through in it.
Which is what exactly I just scrolled down into, which is an enlargement. And you see the enlargement of an eye screw. This one is particularly strange and seems to be being held up by a tree. And it is... What are the feelings you get of this? I just want to get your impressions.
It feels like it was Christmas ornaments gone wrong in that they all brought themselves together in one location on the tree and then floated away on trays.
It almost seems like it's being held up by that tree almost, right?
Yeah.
This one, it almost seems like it wasn't one that was meant to get out. Again, very nice, like Swiss countryside in the background. It's just nice. This is very clearly something that has been rigged up by Billy Meiers. That is laughable to think that he would even think that that would pass of a UFO. I'm just going to scroll through the rest. So when we say this is going to come up in what I'm going to talk about next, this is just 3 different kinds of UFOs just kind of suspended in mid-air. Again, another one, it's not propelling one way or the other. It's just kind of suspended there in midair.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Yep. Another one just suspended there in midair.
Yeah, he's just taking photos of the landscape. And there happens to be UFOs there. It's just kind of weird.
So it looks like, from what people have put together, that he is just building little models and suspending them with fishing wire or something like that in front of the camera. Again, CGI is not a thing at this time, so he's having to physically build models and make it, and it shows. It absolutely shows. And while at the time it's not something people are used to seeing, it's still obviously a hoax as far as what we're looking at.
Well, not only that, it's based on what people are seeing. So they're building these models off of that, in my mind.
Absolutely. There's nothing else to base it on.
Because that absolutely looks like just like the categorical flying saucer. Like, that's just what it looks like.
Oh, yeah. Not even. He's even just like finding shit that he can find in his house, probably.
Mm-hmm.
In 1997, Meiers' ex-wife Callio told interviewers that his photos were of spaceship models he crafted with items like trash can lids, carpet tacks, and other household objects, and that the stories he told of his adventures with the aliens were similarly fictitious. She's met with a little bit of skepticism because she was so involved with saying that his story was true for a long time, and she switched on him. She also said that the photos of the purported extraterrestrial woman Asket and Nera were really photos of Michelle Delafave and Susan Lunn, members of the singing and dancing troupe The Gold Diggers. Here you're going to see the photo, Taylor. It was later confirmed that the women in the photographs were members of the Gold Diggers performing on the Dean Martin show. According to a letter posted on the FIGU website by Meyer in May 1998, the extraterrestrial Ptah informed Meyer that the photographs of Asket and Nera were actually of their American doubles. Meyer went on to explain that the men in black had intercepted his film, found lookalikes for Asket and Nera, took pictures of them, and substituted these false images for the originals of the Asket Nera photos. And he claims that the men in black performed the same trickery with most of his early photos. But if you look at like, I can't even. Once we start getting into this shit is so clearly just bad photography of
of things that are actually going on. Of
things that are going on that he's trying to say. It's just bad photography. This is clearly the same people.
It really is. Yeah, there's no question about it.
There's no question that those are the same people.
Yeah, no, seriously, from looking at it for 2 seconds, there's no question those were the exact same photos.
It just needed to be put. I mean, if you see that other one, you're going to say, okay, yeah, they maybe look like extraterrestrials, maybe not, because they look human. And there's nothing extraterrestrial about their facial features, anything other than it's overexposed. We're going to see some better. I don't know how this man has got so far in his life, yet here we are talking about him. Meyer has been widely characterized as a fraud by skeptics and ufologists who suggest that he used models to hoax photo claims to show alien spacecraft. Meyer's prophecies repeatedly blame Jews, who he refers to as gypsies, for future atrocities.
Yeah, fair enough. That's what they do.
Yep, that is what they do. That's what most of them do.
I'm sorry, fair enough is not the right way to say that, but that's what they do. Is a more fair way to say it.
That's what we've seen, yes, in people of this. Some of Meyer's claims involve not yet discovered facts about their solar system, including a description of Almothea, the closest moon to Jupiter, which he claimed was 200 kilometers in length. While unfortunately incorrect, a 1979 article in the New York Times also came to the same wrong conclusion about Almothea. Meyer also asserted that another Jupiter moon known as Lo had once been covered with water, which was also later proven to be incorrect. Now, there has been claims he has made that have been correct, but I mean, if you throw shit to the wind...
Io, not Lo.
Oh, Io, okay.
Yeah, it's a deceptive title for a planet.
I learned something new.
Yeah.
This is something we're seeing, and I'll give you my opinions at the end of this, but we're seeing are not aging well, because he's using a camera being like, well, if I do it this way, nobody's ever gonna know because the technology's not that great. And that wasn't his excuse, was the technology's not that great. It just was that. It just wasn't great. So I could see how some people would be like, wow, this is real stuff. He was using very simple ways of making it look like he was doing things. Billy Meiers' credibility fell further upon the discovery that thousands of photos he'd taken in the 1970s proved to be fabrications. These photos featured purported spacecraft referred to as beam ships flying over the countryside. Over the years, the validity of these pictures has been dismissed for a myriad of reasons, including that the spacecraft was perfectly focused and centered within the frame. Upon close inspection, numerous Meiers' photos were also found to contain household items passing for pieces of ships, such as eye screws that suspended the models in the air, or even cups, bowls, and paper plates that made up the bodies of the crafts. After closely examining literally thousands of UFO photos originating from the Wendell Stevens collection, 14 significant criteria photos became abundantly clear, which can be used to gauge the authenticity of a particular image. Any purported UFO photo which contains 3 or more of the photos listed below should immediately raise a red flag and indicate a strong possibility that the photo is a hoax. Number 1, multiple grouped UFOs photographed in the same shot. Number 2, UFO never photographed on the ground. Number 3, object too large or disproportionate, which is use of forced or false perspective technique. Number 4, object perfectly centered in the frame. Number 5, object positioned perfectly about the vertical axis. Number 6, photograph too clear. Number 7, objects surrounded by trees or various structures to obscure suspension rig. Number 8, evidence of fabrication using household items, cups, balls, paper plates, ornaments, lids. Number 9, identical background used to photograph different craft. Number 10, evidence of eye screws used to hang models from suspension rig. Number 11, multiple craft photographed on the same date. Number 12, lack of field propulsion distortion. Number 13, lack of photographs of identical craft from a totally separate source. Number 14, consistent encounters of a craft in rural or unpopulated areas. As we talked about in 1975, Meyer alleged he made 2 journeys through space and time with his Pleiadian contactors. During his alleged journey, he witnessed the historic Apollo-Soyuz coupling on July 17th. He visited moons and planets in our solar system and in other faraway galaxies. He even visited another parallel universe called the Doll universe. That's where
Good for him.
one of them would have been from. I can't remember the name. His second space journey, described in Contact Report 39, was started December 3rd, 1975 and lasted 2 days. He was taken through a dimensional gate opened at the Bermuda Triangle that allowed access into 3 different dimensions and time planes. According to the contact notes, Meyer alleged he made more than 1,380 pictures from his 2 journeys, out of which he claims that many hundreds have either been lost, stolen, unusable due to overexposure or distortions, or falsified. We're gonna take a look at his space trip. Are you ready?
No, I'll never be ready for this,
Oh,
apparently.
you're fucking ready for this. Where is it? Right here.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna look at the photos that Billy Meier took. So I'm gonna read you this first. It has all the fucking details here. Date, July 17, 1975. Time not stated. Location, inside Sam Jass's spacecraft on the way to the planet Venus. Meyer photo number not listed in the recalled by the Pleiadians. I don't know what that word is. I'm not even gonna attempt it. Photographed by Beam. So I'm just gonna read this analysis right here, and then I'm gonna show you the photo. I'm gonna move down. You know what? I already read this to you. So basically, he's taking a photograph of Venus. Here you're gonna see Billy Meyer's photo, if you can see where my mouse is.
Yeah.
And you're gonna see right next to it are Mariner 10's ultraviolet filtered images of Venus from its February 1974 flyby. Right next to it there. So he took this right directly from a book and took a photo of it.
Yeah, it really looks like that.
It
And it's
really looks
weird
like
he
that,
couldn't
doesn't
get
it?
a closer photo of Venus, having flown to it.
No, it's a very strange thing. I'm just gonna keep going through. I mean, those just look like whatever. So here's another. This is Myers right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And weirdly, yeah, there's even the real photo with the satellite that he has cropped out.
It's a photo directly from NASA that is next to it. That is literally the exact photo. He just took a...
And it has to be because he cropped out only part of the satellite that is included in this NASA photo.
Sure did. So somebody actually went through all these photos and found I can't really call it inspiration of what he's taking.
Why did he include so many satellites in these photos that he took?
You know, I'm gonna say this one that we're looking at right now, that's not even a fucking photo. That's a drawing.
Yeah.
The Viking orbiter spacecraft releases the aeroshell-clad lander near the high point of its orbit around Mars. It's a drawing. Here we go. And this is my favorite one. This is Billy Meier and Patat.
Okay.
And so we're going to scroll down right here. Here we go. This is from an episode of Mouse on the Moon from 1963. So he just took a picture of a TV with this. They found the photo that matches with the photo he took.
It looks somewhat similar, yeah.
So just somewhat, yeah, might be that. Pretty sure it is. Here's another one they matched up, prehistoric Earth with 2 moons. I'm going to link this web up in the show notes as well. It clearly is debunking a lot of these photos and showing the inspiration from them. This Meiers image of a supposed beam ship monitor device is eerily similar to a terrestrial oscilloscope. This is a long write-up. Going into it, I'm just looking at the photos on this one. It actually debunks and talks about all of it. I'm doing this episode, so that's the end of us looking at it. That's enough for you. You can read through it if you want. They'll be in the episode note. Next one up. This is my favorite one. Billy Meiers, as you know, traveled back through time, right?
I mean, he had to have, because we've said that several times now.
Yeah. I'm going to share my screen again. Let me know when you're up.
Yep, got it. Well, no way, he saw a pterodactyl? Good for him.
He saw a pterodactyl. I know, and...
I mean, I never saw a pterodactyl. He's one up on me.
I know. So what we're looking at is a photo Billy took of a pterodactyl on one of his time travel adventures. And I'm just going to read for you right now some correspondence that comes with this photograph. Dear Billy, enclosed is my quick translation of a letter to the editor by Ray Rimmel of England, which he wrote to the magazine Fortean Times on account of your alleged dinosaur photos, which the magazine had apparently printed in issue 9157. Here's what the man wrote. I was fascinated by Billy Meiers' dinosaur photograph. Actually, it's a Pteradon, a sort of pterosaur. So here we are looking at it. The image did look very familiar. It bears a spooky similarity to a famous painting by the acclaimed Czech paleo artist Stink Burian and has appeared in many books since the early 1960s. I too have managed to photograph a pterosaur, but did take the trouble to make a model rather than rely on a piece of artwork. Does this mean that Mr. Meyer didn't travel to the Mesozoic after all? I think we should be told.
That means that he's seen a pterosaur or a pterodon in the modern world?
Yeah. Well, we know that there's pterodactyl sightings.
Oh, all the time. All the time. And that's an episode in the future. No, we have not. That's an episode
that's what
in the
I
future.
thought. We didn't do it. We need to do it because there's pterodactyl sightings all the time. All the time. Like, there goes one now.
Yep. There goes 2, in fact. One just happened to be in present and one happened to be during the dinosaur.
Just to take a photo. I see them so often. So the enclosed illustration with text was sent over to us by Norman DeCindis, who lives in Boca Raton, Florida, who has already discovered several things in some magazines or the internet and is always helpful to you. But this time even he thinks that this accusation makes him sad. Even though he still believes in your genuine context. But it is this sort of thing that turns people against Billy. As far as I know, he has also sent you these color images, but may not this letter to the editor. Shalom and best regards. I love how there's a heart here. H&B, and here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Scroll down. You're gonna be hard pressed to find a similarity.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing similar between these photos other than I think literally everything about them.
Photo.
Maybe the background has been blurred too much to get any detail.
It's an overexposed photo.
Yeah.
It's clearly that exact photo.
And the funny thing is, you know, it has to be overexposed because Meiers couldn't have seen a creature who had its throat entirely missing.
I'm not sure what's going on in that painting, but it's clearly missing in Meiers' photo.
Yeah, right around the spot where the white spot is in Burian's photo.
So I just want to read you Billy's response to this because I just think that it so wonderfully encapsulates how he deals with anybody coming at him calling it fake. So Billy's response, Shalom Heidi and Bob. I have received with thanks your letter dated January 25th. The pictures were also included, of course. Indeed, I have already received this one, probably even from the man whom you mentioned. To my knowledge, we have not responded to him. Perhaps we should still do this. However, it may also be that it was good as such and that perhaps you can enlighten the man. The circumstances are as follows. For my part, I can no longer recall exactly how many pictures I made on my great journey, but there were several hundred. Today, all of these pictures are no longer available. Also, no slides and no negatives or films, because all the material was taken away from me and destroyed by Quetzal. The reason for this was that he was furious because countless of these pictures and slides as well as films were falsified in order to discriminate against me. The counterfeits were distributed in many places and even exchanged with my own material, whereby the genuine shots
Yeah,
were
like in his own
me.
book.
Yeah.
How could they?
Which were so numerous that replacements of the slides were no longer noticeable to me, especially since I didn't look at them constantly. Now, at that time, some Jassy told me that some machination like this took place and that therefore I should handle the material more carefully, which Quetzal also suggested to me, who even forbade me from continuing to use the pictures and slides. Then one day he told me that a large part of my photographs were still being maliciously tampered with and had been distributed, and that also group members had come into possession of falsified photos and slides because I have given them a set, without knowing that these were already fakes, etc. Consequently, Guido has also received such pictures and slides from me. Well, one day Quetzal took all the material and destroyed it, through which greater harm should probably be avoided. Nevertheless, many falsified pictures and slides are still in circulation all over the world, and indeed so numerously, as Quetzal said, that not all of these can be investigated, so everything is simply left as is, which is also true of photos and slides of the ships. Thus, in accordance with these facts, it is very well possible that in concerns of forgery with the right image, which is foisted on me or had already been maliciously foisted on me by a willful exchange. However, the breast portion of the flying dinosaur as well as the underside of the beak appears suspicious to me because these are not consistent with the picture of the artist TGIBEAM.
No, wait. Chelsea, I just want to make sure that he is both saying at this point,
Yeah.
clearly somebody else frauded these, but also this one's not fraud because
it's different from the photo, but it's clearly still the photo, just underexposed. Yeah. No, you got it right.
Okay.
It gets better. It gets better. Anyhow, as to whether this is fake or not, on the one hand, there are at least two striking differences. On the other hand, I cannot judge whether the image committed to me is genuine or not, because it had already been too long that I can still remember all pictures, slides, and films, especially because many memories have been erased from my memory and haven't been reclaimed after my serious health collapse in November of 1982, when I suffered a severe head trauma and lost large parts of my memory capacity. Now, of course, I won't simply let the matter rely on itself, but will ask Ptah at the next opportunity, who can surely give me information, but when will come, I do not know. But I will fax you his answer promptly as soon as he has appeared and has given me a suitable explanation. Unfortunately, up to now, the events surrounding the fakes and concerning the photos, slides, and films destroyed by Quetzal haven't been mentioned much in the contact reports because everything took place outside of the public contact conversations, but I'm sure that Ptah will answer the question, at least in the framework that he knows. Until then, all the love and all the best. 06/30/1997, 3 p.m. Billy. So Ptah does respond, and his response is, translator note, the following response was given February 3rd, 1998, which is 8 months later during the 260th contact. Ptah says, your letter and reply is absolutely correct, but it would still be of value to deliver from my side the following explanation. We and other people in your immediate and wider vicinity, in accordance with our own and also your clarifications, are well aware that many of your photos relating to our aircraft and others are connected to us, were maliciously falsified, or were even imitated from the ground up and became falsified in this manner. In this regard, not only was the photographer extremely busy, whom you know by the name of Schmid of the Rhine Valley, but also several other people at home and abroad who were jealous and who are still to this very day. Who the fuck is Schmid of the Rhine Valley?
I feel like it's something in the lore that we should just know at this point, but we don't.
Okay. I mean, if we're going through all the contact reports up until the 260th one, among the forgeries and falsifications weren't just the photos that showed our aircraft, but also those images that you made on your great journey. This is especially true for the dinosaur images, as well as the Apollo Soyuz. What was it? Soyuz? It was something other than that. Images. Oh well. But also various other images belong with these. Overall, as we've determined through the detailed investigations, you had made 1,476 photos, which is actually a different number than I said above, with your Olympus ECR 35mm camera, as well as 34 films with your movie camera that you could use with just one hand. Of the photos, several hundreds were stolen from you. I love how this guy's recounting it for him exactly. And moreover,
well, most importantly, that I'm sure he's the one who's actually relaying it too, because I'm pretty sure we don't hear from Ptah directly.
I'm pretty sure that is the case as well. At least, which we could clarify, 230 of these were falsified. There was also falsifying through the manipulation of several films, and to be sure, in the way that our spacecraft were suddenly represented as though these had been suspended from thin strings or wires, etc. And so the impression was made that these were models. Concerning the dinosaur images that were addressed in the letter to you, it seems to me, as you mentioned, that some isn't right. Whereas I see the two images aren't exactly alike. It may be that it is forgery that has been foisted upon you, like also so many other forgeries, as I already explained. But now we can no longer investigate what is actually the case, unfortunately, because as you know, Quetzal took all the originals and copies and slides and negatives, etc., from your workroom and eliminated them. So today we can no longer investigate the concerns in this respect.
Well, it is so unfortunate that Quetzal turns out to be a dick and just take all these photos so we don't have them.
Yeah, I mean,
what a weird coincidence.
That would easily, I mean, if we had those and Quetzal wasn't such a dick, we would have the answer. These are all bullshit lies foisted upon Billy. But Billy does respond to Ptah, and Billy says, Quetzal acted perhaps somewhat hastily.
Yes, that's the words I would use for Quetzal.
Yeah, and perhaps Quetzal is a dickhead. I don't think that was the case, Ptah says. Whereas it proved itself, it really was necessary. We also should have done the same thing with various images of our aircraft. A lot of harm would have been avoided through this, especially if we secured the deceitful forgeries and falsifications produced by the FOMO and film counterfeits. But in this connection, we had to comply with our directives, as this was also recommended to us by the High Council. We could and were allowed to intervene directly only in those concerns that stood in a direct relationship with us, and this was just your personal film and photo material. I quite enjoyed that. That was my favorite one that I stumbled upon. It was clearly that photo that was taken a picture of. There are no ifs, ands, and buts. There are definitely differences. It is that photo.
I really love, and this is one of those things that I always see hilariously done in court cases, where somebody adamantly denies any knowledge on anything, and then gives, but if I did, and gives knowledge on that topic. And I'm like, this is the stupidest thing you could ever fucking do, because you're clearly saying that whatever you said before is a lie, because you want to defend what also you were just asking.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And that's clearly what happened here. Is like, oh yeah, no, this other alien stole the photo.
Like,
but also, this one doesn't look that far off of what is not, like, that's not the same photo, so it maybe is real.
O.J. Simpson not write a book that was
He wrote a book called If I Did It, yes.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Ballsy, O.J. Simpson.
I was in fact very torn on which one to go with when I was describing this topic to you. But you know, O.J. just died, so you know, in commemoration of the dead, I chose to go with the other topic.
Yeah,
more general
that's
idea.
Okay. I got it.
Okay.
So that's a lot to take in for one episode, which it's spilling into 3 episodes. You gotta. I think nobody's gonna touch David Wilcock on his 5 fucking episodes.
But this guy's coming up there. And really, the question really also becomes with David Wilcock is, do you accept him as Edgar Casey and now become a 7-topic episode?
We have to follow up on him, actually, because he's
we actually do, yes.
Shit. Yeah, I mean, Bill Moore, he had a 3-episode, I think. So it's only fair that Billy Meiers, who nobody knows as much about, well, nobody knew anything about Bill Moore. Anyhow, I'm going to end this episode off with a quote I stumbled upon randomly on a webpage devoted to BM. And I thought that I would leave you with this food for thought. This is called, quote, A Word About Billy by, quote, end quote, by Eva Beery. And it goes like this. Much has been written about Edward Albert Meyer, who is called Billy, and much of it has been far from being flattering or objective. It seems that every... It seems that every human has his own subjective concept of what, or rather who, Billy Meiers is. The fewest know him personally, and when they do know him, not good enough to form an unbiased opinion about him. Most people connect him with UFOs, what is most likely since his UFO photos are known all over the world. However, this UFO thing is pushed into the background more and more, and his main occupation comes forth ever distinctly. He is a penman, a writer who has already written thousands of pages, indeed not just novels, although he has written some, but writings whose content stimulates thinking and gives each person the initiative to ask ever more questions and, through this, to grasp ever more answers. He is the author of umpteen books. I love that that's the scale in which he measures the amount of books he has written that are written in a wonderful and understandable language.
That's always how you want language to be described.
That's how I want my books to be known as. This podcast, even. I would love for it to be known as that in an understandable language. Sometimes it's not.
We strive.
We try. We really try. We do our best. His, in quote, in brackets, sorry, those are not, damn it, I just let you guys down in saying an understandable language. His bracket, book, and bracket lines lead into worlds of which we have not dreamed of yet. He gives nourishment to our dreams and lets our fantasy turn heads over heels by touching strings within ourselves and letting them vibrate, something we possibly would have never discovered. Billy is the author of many readable and interesting books. Why do most people not realize this? They define Billy through his UFO photos only, whether these are genuine or not. Simply a waste of time. They do not realize or know that Billy's task and main occupation is to write and teach. He does this so masterly and with a fluency that every sentence fits and is correct in its meaning. And all of this is achieved in one go, without additional correcting of sentences or content. That will not be imitated too easily by the so-called authors who polish and potter around their books for years until ultimately they publish it. All the while, Billy, as a rule, writes a book in a few weeks or in 2 or 3 months, and that is with a worthy content. Billy has worked in a great variety of activities in many different professions in order to ultimately being literally left sitting with the most difficult and ambitious work, to the luck of all people who read and study his books, who are grateful that all those tremendously big treasures have been written down by him and are recorded in writing. Eva Beery. And with that, I'm gonna get your thoughts, but I thought, what is Billy Meiers' net worth? And it's between $1 to $5 million.
Okay.
Which is far more than I thought it would be, considering he's selling eggs.
Fair enough. He sold books too, just so we're on the same page. Like a lot of books.
We did just cover that. He does sell books. Okay.
And that, in fact, seems about like the average boomer / silent generation's net worth.
Okay, I can get behind that. Now, this is the end of the episode, so I just want to get your thoughts on where we're at right now.
Well, he sounds readable from what has been described.
I love that last quote.
It sounds like nobody is telling us anything about the aliens other than Billy.
No.
But he's going on so many adventures with these people who are also giving their own statements. So the fact that he's called himself a prophet, I'm very curious when this turns into a cult. Mm-hmm. And how many people get involved with it is kind of what I'm waiting for.
That's a very good question. So I'm not going to give anything away for next week. Okay. But you may your answers that you may be looking for. And I'm going to tell you what my takeaways are at this point. I do know where this goes, but I haven't written the next episode yet. So there are still things that are a mystery to me, so I can say this without bias. This to me seems like either a bored person or a mentally ill person that has been entertaining this for a very, very long time and has not stopped since he was a young child when he met multiple alien entities and made up a story. For what reason, I'm not sure. It might be a little concerning that there were adults grooming him, to which an entire life of fabrications came. But it seems to me like this is what he does. He just sits and writes and creates entire stories and interactions with aliens and writes them down. It seems like this is all he does because there are such...
Or he goes on wild adventures, which he takes very weird photographs of, which also happen to exist in the world outside of it already, or are very easily faked.
Very easily. So to me, a person that this is their whole life is just building its elaborate hoaxes that are clearly been fabricated and then put stories around them and then follows them up with letters and stuff like that, being like they're destroyed and let's see what the aliens have to say about it, and then he has the aliens have their say on it. Pretty disturbing as a human being that this is where he's going with this. Not going with it, this is his life. And the fact that we saw such blatant hoaxes of taking pictures out of book is also fairly concerning. We haven't seen things this brazen with our... well, we have seen some pretty brazen things in the history of our podcast, but it's pretty brazen to just be going through books on space and taking pictures and saying that this is what you took on a space adventure. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it after putting these 2 episodes together.
Well, thank you for putting this all together so far, Chelsea. And I am fully excited to see the point where it turns out Billy has not been lying at all and he's just been going on spaceship adventures.
We're always looking for that. We're always looking for it. The surprise, it was all real. Maybe we'll get it part 3. It'll be a short one.
Yeah. So you guys, keep your eye out for that 4-minute episode on a Friday coming out soon. But in the meantime, I have been Taylor here with Chelsea. We are Journey to the Fringe. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Journey to the Fringe. If you have liked what you have listened to, please like, share, subscribe, or follow, depending on what venue you are listening to us through. Also, please, if possible, leave a 5-star review, as that really helps us in the algorithms. Should you wish to interact with us, please check us out on your social media of choice. I bet you we are there. And if you really want to communicate with us and give us ideas for new episodes or tell us that we're wrong and terrible, either way, please send us an email at journeytothefringe@gmail.com. For now, I'll see you in the next episode.